When I was 12 years old, my father took me out behind the barn and showed me how to replace the fuel filter on an old diesel generator. It was late afternoon, the sky dimming into that purple haze Oklahoma evenings get, and I remember the smell of grease and cut grass mingling with the sharp tang of fuel. Dad wiped his hands on a rag, pressed a heavy wrench into my palms, and said in his gravelly voice, "This land runs because we know how to keep it running. Don't ever forget that." I never did. That sentence has rattled around in my head every day since, and maybe that's why even now, at 42 years old, I'm still living on the same 12-acre plot my folks left me. It's tucked away just outside Tulsa, quiet enough that the cicadas carry farther than traffic, and stubborn enough that people call me outdated and asocial, or both. But to me, it's not stubbornness. It's home. It's mine. And in a world that keeps trying to sell you something you don't need, or squeeze you into some prepackaged box, mine means everything. The house itself isn't anything fancy. A low ranch-style place built back in the 1970s. It's got a wraparound porch I rebuilt myself after a tornado ripped half of it off in 2014. Out back stands a solar rig. Not the store-bought kind, but one I pieced together panel by panel over 3 summers. There's a well that goes deeper than any HOA would ever approve of, and a workshop that I treat better than my own bedroom. I'm not completely off-grid, but I'm close enough that when town loses power, my lights stay on and my fridge keeps humming. For years, my nearest company was deer slipping through the brush and the occasional cow from Tom Halverson's spread to the east. That peace lasted until about 4 years ago. That's when the developers arrived, slick shoes, expensive blueprints, and promises of modern community living. They called it a unified neighborhood experience. What they meant was boxy prefab houses jammed on quarter-acre lots, each stamped with a different shade of beige. They built a perimeter fence. They mandated lawn height. They assigned color-coded mailboxes. And their western edge butted right up against mine. I figured that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 months ago, I got a letter. Crisp white envelope, no return address, just 3 embossed initials at the top. SHA, Sunny Hollow Homeowners Association. Inside was a typed offer. They wanted my land for community expansion. They assured me I'd be fairly compensated. I didn't even make it past the second paragraph. I fed it to the fire pit out back. 2 weeks later came another letter. Same initials, same corporate politeness. But this time they highlighted the number. $600,000. I laughed so hard Banjo, my old hound, lifted his head from the porch just to stare at me. $600,000 might sound generous to somebody who doesn't know what they have. But I know this land. I know where the creek cuts low in spring, where the cottonwoods lean in summer, where Banjo likes to nap in the afternoon shade. You can't slap a price tag on that. Then came the visit. I was mending a fence down by the south pasture when I heard the slow crunch of tires on gravel. A spotless white SUV eased up and stopped at the gate. Out stepped a woman in a pale blue pantsuit, clipboard in hand, heels clicking like she was pacing a showroom floor. "Mr. Reed?" she asked with a rehearsed smile. "That's me," I said cautiously. She extended a manicured hand. "Karen Martell, president of Sunny Hollow HOA. We've sent you a few letters." "I noticed," I said, not taking the hand. Karen launched into a speech about shared values, expansion, and cohesive residential harmony. It sounded like somebody had programmed a realtor chatbot and set it to maximum caffeine. I let her talk. When she finally paused, I just said, "Not interested." Her smile didn't waver. "I understand this property holds sentimental value, but I'd encourage you to think of the bigger picture." I gestured to the open fields stretching behind me. "This is my bigger picture." Something flickered in her eyes, just a shadow, but the smile snapped back into place. She laid a card on my fence post like she was planting a flag, then turned on her heel and drove away. For a while, I thought that was the end of it. Life goes on. But the next week, a white sedan appeared, parked by the edge of the HOA property, unmoving for hours. The day after that, 2 men in neon vests walked my perimeter with clipboards, measuring tape snapping in the wind. They waved cheerfully, said something about surveying improvements. I didn't wave back. Something was brewing. I could feel it in my bones, like static before a storm. I found out soon enough. I woke one morning to the bone-rattling groan of diesel engines. At first, I thought it was a truck lost on the county road, maybe turning around. Then came the clank of a backhoe arm hitting earth. I pulled on my boots, grabbed Banjo's leash, and stepped outside. Dust filled the air, thick red Oklahoma dirt rolling like smoke. On the edge of my western fence line sat heavy machinery, one bulldozer, two backhoes, and a dump truck. Men in hard hats and orange vests swarmed like they were on a military schedule. And in the middle of it all stood Karen Martell, reflective vest draped over her designer scarf, directing traffic with her clipboard. She spotted me and waved like we were neighbors at a barbecue. "Morning, Mr. Reed," she shouted over the roar. "What the hell is this?" I barked, striding toward the fence with Banjo growling low at my side. "Just a bit of work on our side of the boundary," she said sweetly. "Routine drainage and soil reinforcement." Looked past her at the trench they were cutting, 4 feet from my fence, 6 feet deep, widening by the minute, and looping around, forming a circle-dot eye. "You planning to dig all the way around me?" Her smile widened. "Now that you mention it, yes. You didn't think you needed to ask me first?" "We checked the plat lines," she said smoothly. "According to our documents, this trench is entirely within HOA jurisdiction. You might want to take another look at your survey maps." I knew damn well my father's old deed, the county survey, every marker on this property. "Karen, you're encroaching. This is illegal." She made a show of holding up her palms. "Oh, come on now, Evan. A little isolation might help you reconsider our offer." I stared at the bulldozer pivoting toward my east boundary. If they closed the loop, I'd have only one narrow driveway left. Fresh stakes in the ground told me even that wouldn't last. I marched back into the house, hands trembling with rage, and called the sheriff's department. A deputy named Wilkins showed up half an hour later, walked the perimeter with me, and listened politely. When Karen handed him laminated maps with suspiciously thick lines, he frowned. "We'll have to verify with the county," he said. "For now, no one crosses into your home lot. Document everything. You might want to get a lawyer." Karen smirked behind him, her clipboard raised like a victory flag. That night I sat on the porch, Banjo asleep at my feet, watching the half-dug ditch scar my land. By the next morning, the machines were back. This time, they crossed the line into my property. They parked a dump truck across my driveway, cutting off my only access to the county road. Delivery stopped. Mail was rerouted. Trash collection canceled. By Friday, I wasn't just fenced in. I was moated, and inside it, the morning I found myself surrounded, it hit me harder than any letter or SUV ever could. They weren't just bluffing. The HOA had literally cut me off from the world. I stood at the edge of my porch, staring at the trench and the dump truck blocking my driveway, and for the first time since my father's word behind that barn, I felt the full weight of being cornered. Banjo barked at the workers, hackles raised. I felt the same heat rising in my chest. But anger alone doesn't win battles. It just gets you arrested if you swing first. I knew I had to be smart, so I started documenting. Every machine that crossed the line, every stake they hammered in, every pile of dirt dumped on my side. I filmed it. I climbed the old oak by the workshop and set up a trail camera, the kind hunters use for deer. Another one went by the mailbox. And then, just for good measure, I dug out the drone I bought years back for checking roof shingles. From 40 feet up, it caught everything. Their bulldozers carving my land like it was their sandbox. I posted the footage online. At first, it was just a rant on a local forum, me venting about the HOA trenching me in like some medieval castle. But within hours, people started sharing. By evening, a video titled, "HOA Traps Farmer on His Own Land," was trending in the county. By the next morning, strangers were commenting from states I'd never stepped foot in. The HOA didn't like that one bit. 2 days later, Karen herself marched back onto my porch, this time flanked by 2 men in suits. She had that same brittle smile plastered on her face, though I noticed her nails were chewed raw beneath the polish. "Mr. Reed," she said smoothly, "there's no need to dramatize the situation. You're turning a neighborly dispute into a circus. A circus you built. I shot back. On my land. One of the suits cleared his throat. Sir, the association is within its rights. I cut him off. Your rights end at my fence. I've got county records, my father's deed, GPS coordinates, and about 20,000 strangers online backing me up. You want a circus? You got one. Karen's smile faltered then. For the first time since this whole mess started, I saw a crack in her mask. That week was war. Not bullets and blood war, but the kind fought with paper, pixels, and persistence. The HOA sent more letters, each one more aggressive than the last. Claims about safety hazards, environmental violations, even excessive dog noise. They threatened fines, legal action, forced easements. I countered with public posts, live drone footage, even interviews with a local radio station. The sheriff's department came out again, this time with the county surveyor. The man walked the trench line, drove markers into the dirt, and finally said what I already knew. They've cut at least 6 feet inside your property. That was the crack I needed. I hired a lawyer, a scrappy young woman named Jessica who grew up in town but had the sharpest legal bite I'd ever seen. She filed an injunction within 48 hours. Suddenly, the bulldozers went silent. Workers vanished. The dump truck blocking my driveway disappeared in the dead of night. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe again. But it wasn't over. Court hearings followed. Karen showed up with glossy maps, polished presentations, and an army of attorneys. They argued I was impeding community growth and deliberately refusing reasonable accommodation. Jessica shredded them. She brought out aerial photos, county plats, and even Banjo's rabies certificate to disprove their noise complaint. Each time the HOA thought they had me cornered, Jessica flipped the script. The judge wasn't blind. After 3 hearings, he ordered the HOA to restore my driveway, fill the trench, and pay damages for trespassing and harassment. When the verdict was read, I didn't cheer. I just looked across the courtroom at Karen Martell. For the first time, her face was pale and empty, clipboard clutched like a lifeline. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. News outlets picked it up. Farmer beats HOA was a headline on one site. Lone landowner defends property against developers, said another. Folks started sending me letters of support, some offering to donate to my legal fund, others just thanking me for standing my ground. A week later, the machines returned, but this time they weren't digging around me. They were filling in the trench under county supervision, hauling away every last mound of stolen earth. Watching them undo their mess was sweeter than any check could ever be. Karen resigned as HOA president not long after. Word was she'd overreached and burned too many bridges with her neighbors. A new board took over, quieter and less pushy. They still send me flyers about community barbecues. I still toss them straight into the fire pit. As for me, life went back to its rhythm. Fixing fences, tending the solar rig, walking Banjo at dusk. Except now, when I sit on my porch and look out at the field, I don't just hear my father's voice. I hear something else. Thousands of strangers online, cheering for one stubborn landowner who refused to sell his soul. And maybe that's the real bigger picture. You don't need gates and bylaws to define a community. Sometimes it's one man, his land, and the courage to say no. Out here, the porch light still burns, the cicadas still sing, and the land is still mine. Forever mine.